The day my father disowned me, he didn't raise his voice, he didn't throw me out. He simply looked me in the eyes and said, "From this moment on, you are no longer my daughter." Some people say words can't hurt. They're wrong. Those 10 words followed me for 12 years. But if I had the chance to go back, I'd make the same choice all over again. My name is Victoria Bennett. I was 26 years old when my family erased me from their lives. I grew up believing I had everything: a beautiful home, private schools, luxury vacations, a trust fund, and parents who insisted they only wanted the best for me. It wasn't until I fell in love that I realized the best came with conditions. The Bennett family owned one of the largest furniture manufacturing companies in our state. My grandfather had started the business in a small warehouse nearly 60 years earlier. By the time I was born, Bennett Furniture employed hundreds of people. To everyone else, we looked like the perfect family: successful, elegant, respectable. Behind closed doors, everything revolved around appearances: who you knew, what you wore, how much money you had, and most importantly, who you married. I met Noah in the least glamorous place imaginable. My car broke down again. The dealership wanted nearly $2,000 for repairs. Frustrated, I asked a co-worker if she knew an honest mechanic. She smiled. "I know the best one in town." She wasn't talking about his skills, at least, not only his skills. When I walked into the small garage, I saw him lying underneath an old pickup truck. His hands were covered in grease. His work shirt had a small tear near one shoulder. Without looking up, he called out, "I'll be with you in just a minute." 5 minutes later, he stood in front of me. Tall, brown hair, kind eyes, a tired smile. "What seems to be the problem?" I explained what the dealership had told me. He listened carefully. Then he checked the car himself. 20 minutes later, he walked back into the waiting area. "You've been lied to." "What?" He held up a small cracked hose. "This is the only thing that needed replacing." "How much?" He smiled. $30. I laughed. "The dealership wanted $2,000. He shrugged. "I fix cars. I don't fix invoices." I couldn't stop smiling. Neither could he. Over the next few months, I kept finding reasons to visit the garage. Sometimes it was my car. Sometimes it was because I hoped Noah would be there. Eventually, he asked, "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" I answered before he even finished the sentence, "Yes." Dating Noah felt easy. There were no expensive restaurants, no luxury gifts, no pretending to impress each other. We talked for hours, walked through parks, shared milkshakes, laughed until midnight. For the first time in my life, someone loved me without caring about my last name. 3 months later, I introduced him to my family. It was a disaster. The moment Noah walked into my parents' dining room, I noticed my father's expression change. He looked at Noah's inexpensive suit, his worn leather shoes, the calluses on his hands. Before dessert was even served, my father asked, "So, what exactly do you do?" "I'm a mechanic." Silence. My mother forced a polite smile. "Do you own the garage?" "No, I'm the lead mechanic." Another silence. My older brother glanced at me with obvious disappointment. The evening never recovered. After Noah drove me home, he parked outside my apartment. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "I don't think your family likes me." I reached for his hand. "They don't know you." He smiled sadly. "I think they know enough." I squeezed his hand. "They'll come around." I believed it. I was wrong. The next afternoon, my father called. "Come to the house." His voice was cold. "We need to talk." The moment I walked into his study, my mother and brother were already waiting. No one smiled. My father stood beside the fireplace. "How serious is this relationship?" I answered honestly. "I love him." My mother sighed. "Victoria, you're confusing gratitude with love." "No, I know exactly how I feel." My father folded his arms. "He's beneath you." I stared at him. "No one is beneath anyone." "That's easy to say when you've never struggled." "I don't care how much money he has." "You will." "I won't." For the next hour, they tried everything: logic, guilt, threats. My father even offered to introduce me to the son of one of his business partners. He's successful, educated. He'll give you the life you deserve. I smiled. I already found the life I deserve. My father's face hardened. Then hear me carefully. If you marry that mechanic, you will receive nothing, no inheritance, no trust, no shares in the company, and you will never step into this house again. The room became completely silent. My mother whispered, "Please, think about your future." I looked at both of them. Then I quietly answered, "I am." 2 weeks later, Noah proposed, not with a diamond worth thousands, just a simple silver ring he'd saved for over 6 months to buy. He looked terrified. "I know I can't give you the life your family can." I smiled through tears. "You already have." He slipped the ring onto my finger. "So, is that a yes?" I laughed. "Of course it's yes." The wedding was small, 32 guests, most of them Noah's family and friends. My side of the church was almost empty. There were no parents, no brother, no grandparents, just one elderly woman sitting quietly in the last pew. As I walked past, she smiled. I recognized her immediately, Margaret, the woman who had worked as our family's housekeeper for almost 30 years. After the ceremony, she hugged me tightly. "They're making the biggest mistake of their lives." I cried into her shoulder. "I know." 3 days after the wedding, a courier delivered an envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was signed by my father. "As promised, you are no longer a member of the Bennett family. Do not contact us again." No explanation, no goodbye, just a signature. I folded the letter carefully, then I threw it into the fireplace. Noah wrapped his arms around me. "You okay?" I watched the paper turn to ashes. Then I smiled through my tears. "I lost my inheritance today." He kissed my forehead. "No, you started building a new one." I believed him. Neither of us knew just how true those words would become. That night, as we lay in our tiny one-bedroom apartment planning a future with almost no money, I took a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines appeared. I looked at them in complete shock. Then I looked toward the bedroom where Noah was sleeping peacefully. Our future had just become a lot more uncertain and a lot more beautiful. I stared at the pregnancy test for what felt like forever. 2 pink lines. Positive. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I laughed again. Not because I was scared of becoming a mother, because I knew Noah would blame himself. He already felt guilty that I had walked away from a life of wealth to marry him. Now he would think he'd dragged me into an even harder life. I wasn't going to let him think that. The next morning, I made his favourite breakfast. Pancakes. Not because we could afford them, because I wanted to remember this day as a happy one. Noah walked into the kitchen, still half asleep. "What's all this? Sit down." He smiled. "Should I be worried?" "A little." He laughed nervously and sat across from me. I reached across the table and placed the pregnancy test in front of him. For a few seconds, he just stared at it. Then he looked at me, then back at the test. His eyes filled with tears. "Victoria," I nodded. "We're having a baby." He covered his mouth with both hands. He couldn't finish the sentence. Instead, he stood up, walked around the table, and wrapped me in the tightest hug I'd ever felt. "I promise." His voice trembled. "I'll spend every day making sure our child never regrets having me as a father." I smiled through tears. They won't. Life changed overnight. Our tiny apartment suddenly felt even smaller. We made lists, cribs, diapers, baby clothes. Every total reminded us how little money we had. One evening, Noah looked at our notebook and sighed. "I can work Saturdays. You're already working 6 days a week. I'll work Sundays too." I shook my head. "I didn't marry you to watch you work yourself into the ground." He smiled sadly. "I know, but I have 2 people depending on me now." I reached for his hand. "No, we have each other." As my pregnancy progressed, I started looking for work. Most companies saw my growing belly before they saw my resume. "We're looking for someone who can commit long term. We'll keep your application on file. We've decided to move forward with another candidate." After the 10th rejection, I sat in my car and cried. Not because I wanted a career, because I wanted to help. That evening, Noah found me sitting on the couch with my laptop. What are you doing? Looking for another way. What kind of way? I don't know yet. He smiled. You always figure things out. A week later, an idea came to me. Growing up around my family's furniture business, I'd learned a lot about sourcing materials, negotiating with suppliers, and building relationships with retailers. I couldn't afford a factory, but I could become a broker. I could connect small workshops with local stores. No inventory, no warehouse, just relationships. I spent weeks researching, calling suppliers, sending emails. Most ignored me. Some laughed, but one small workshop agreed to give me a chance. My commission on the first order, $120. I celebrated as if I'd won the lottery. Our daughter, Lily, was born on a rainy October morning. The moment Noah held her, every fear disappeared from his face. She's perfect. I smiled. She has your eyes. He looked at me. No, she has your strength. Those first months were exhausting. Lily cried all night. Noah worked all day. I answered business calls during nap time. Sometimes I rocked Lily with one arm while typing invoices with the other. We were exhausted, but we were building something together. 2 years passed, then 4, then 6. My little brokerage business grew faster than I ever expected. I hired 1 employee, then 3, then 10. Noah eventually left the garage and joined me. Not because I asked him to, because he'd become fascinated by logistics and operations. You know? He laughed one evening. I spent years fixing engines. Now I'm fixing supply chains. I smiled. And you're really good at it. Together we worked late into the night after Lily had gone to bed. We argued about business decisions. We celebrated new contracts. We made mistakes. But every decision was ours. Every success belonged to both of us. One afternoon, nearly 10 years after leaving my family, I received an invitation to an industry awards gala. Our company had been nominated for Fastest Growing Manufacturing Logistics Partner of the Year. I almost didn't go. Then Noah convinced me. You've earned this. That night when they announced the winner, they called our company's name. The room erupted into applause. As I walked onto the stage, I looked out across hundreds of business leaders. Not one of them knew I'd once been told I'd never succeed without my family's money. 12 years after I walked away from the Bennett mansion, our company employed over 300 people. We owned 2 distribution centres. We worked with manufacturers across the country. And without realising it at first, our annual revenue had quietly surpassed the company my father had once said I could never survive without. One Friday afternoon, as Noah and I were reviewing quarterly reports, my assistant knocked on the office door. Victoria, there's a call for you. Who is it? She hesitated. He says, he's your brother. I froze for 12 years. Not one birthday card, not one phone call, not one apology. I slowly picked up the receiver. Hello? A familiar voice answered. It sounded older, weaker. Victoria, it's Adam. There was a long silence. Then he whispered the words I never thought I'd hear. We need your help. 12 years. That was how long it had been since I'd heard my brother's voice. Not a birthday message, not a Christmas card, nothing. And now, the first words out of his mouth were, we need your help. I tightened my grip on the phone. Why are you calling now? Adam let out a long breath, because I don't know who else to call. You had 12 years. I know. Where were you when Lily was born? Silence. Where were you when Mom ignored every birthday? Still nothing. Where were you when Dad sent a letter telling me I wasn't his daughter anymore? His voice broke. I deserve that. No, you deserve much worse. Noah looked up from across the office. He could tell from my expression that something was wrong. I held up one finger, asking him to wait. Adam finally spoke again. Dad is sick. I closed my eyes. What happened? He had a heart attack 6 months ago. And? He's recovering. But he's not the same. Part of me wanted to ask 100 questions. Another part remembered the man who had signed a letter erasing me from his life. I forced myself to stay calm. What does that have to do with me? The company? What about it? It's collapsing. I frowned. Bennett Furniture? Yes. How? Adam laughed bitterly. You've been gone a long time. The market changed. We made bad decisions. We lost major contracts. I listened quietly. We're drowning in debt. Suppliers are refusing deliveries. Banks won't extend more credit. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The company my father had treated like royalty was dying. Adam swallowed hard. Dad wants to see you. I almost laughed. 12 years ago, he said never come back. I know. Now he wants me back because he needs something. His silence answered the question. I don't want your money, Victoria. I don't know how to save this company. I looked through the glass wall of my office. 300 employees were working inside the business Noah and I had built together. We had started with nothing. Now my family wanted me to say everything they were about to lose. That evening, Noah and I sat on our back porch after Lily had gone to bed. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked only one question. What do you want to do? I honestly don't know. Then don't think about what they want. Think about what gives you peace. I smiled. You always do that. What? You make complicated things sound simple, he laughed. I learned from the best. 2 days later, I drove through the large iron gates of the Bennett estate for the first time in 12 years. The mansion looked exactly the same. The long driveway, the fountains, the perfectly trimmed gardens. But something felt different. It no longer felt like home. It felt like a museum, a place filled with memories that belonged to someone else. The front door opened before I reached it. My mother stood there. For a second, neither of us moved. Time had changed both of us. Her hair was almost completely grey. The confident woman I remembered looked tired. Older. She stepped forward. Victoria. Her voice trembled. I simply nodded. Hello, Mom. She burst into tears. I've missed you. The words hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to believe them. But 12 years of silence don't disappear because someone starts crying. You had my phone number. She lowered her head. I know. Inside the house, everything looked the same. The grand staircase, the crystal chandelier, the family portraits, except mine were gone. Every photograph that once included me had been replaced. I noticed. My mother noticed me noticing. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. Adam was waiting in my father's old office. He looked exhausted. The confident older brother who had once laughed when I married Noah had disappeared. He stood awkwardly. I didn't know if you'd come. I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you. I wouldn't have blamed. There was an uncomfortable silence. Finally, he said, the board is meeting upstairs. They're waiting for you. I frowned. For me? They know you're here. Why? Because. He hesitated. They think you're our last chance. When I walked into the boardroom, every conversation stopped. 6 directors sat around the table. Most had known me since I was a teenager. Years ago, they had watched my father disown me. Not one of them had spoken. Now, every one of them stood up. The chairman forced a smile. Victoria, it's good to see you again. I nodded politely. Is it? No one answered. A stack of financial reports lay in front of the empty chair reserved for me. I sat down, opened the first file. Within minutes, I realized something was terribly wrong. This wasn't ordinary mismanagement. Millions of dollars had disappeared over several years. Payments to companies I'd never heard of, inflated supplier contracts, consulting fees with no documentation. I turned another page, then another. The numbers didn't make sense. I looked up slowly. Who approved these transactions? The room fell silent. The directors exchanged nervous glances. No one answered. I closed the folder. This company isn't failing because of the economy. I looked each person in the eye. It's being robbed. The room went completely silent. Adam stared at me. What are you saying? I pushed the financial reports across the table. I'm saying someone inside this company has been stealing millions. No one spoke. No one even breathed. And in that moment, I realized saving the family business would be far more dangerous than anyone had admitted. The boardroom was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway. My father pushed the envelope toward me. His hand was shaking. I've already signed the documents. If you accept them, Bennett Furniture becomes yours. I looked down at the papers. 12 years ago I had cried because I thought I had lost everything. Now the very inheritance I'd once dreamed of was sitting in front of me. Strangely, I didn't feel excited. I felt free. I slowly closed the envelope. Then I slid it back across the table. My father frowned. You don't want it, I smiled gently. It's not that simple. Why not? Because 12 years ago, I begged you to accept the man I loved. You chose your company instead. Tears filled his eyes. I know. Today you're asking me to choose your company over the life I built. He looked down. I can't make that mistake. The directors exchanged nervous glances. One of them finally spoke. If you refuse, the company may not survive. I looked around the room. For years this company survived because of the people on the factory floor, the carpenters, the drivers, the designers, the office staff. They deserve better than the leadership they've had. I paused. So I'll help. Relief spread across the room. But, I continued, I won't own it. Adam looked confused. What are you saying? I'm saying I'll spend the next 6 months helping restructure the company. I'll bring in my executive team. We'll renegotiate supplier contracts, recover stolen assets, rebuild operations. But after that, the company belongs to the Bennett family, not to me. My father lowered his head. I don't deserve your kindness. I walked over and knelt beside his chair. No, you don't. He looked up, surprised by my honesty. But forgiveness isn't about what someone deserves. It's about deciding that their worst mistake won't control the rest of your life. For the first time in 12 years, he hugged me. Not as the owner of a company, not as the daughter who had disappointed him, just his daughter. Both of us cried. Neither of us tried to hide it. Over the next 6 months, Noah and I worked alongside the Bennett Furniture team. We closed fake supplier accounts, recovered millions through legal action, modernized production, renegotiated contracts. Employees who had feared losing their jobs slowly began smiling again. One afternoon, an elderly carpenter stopped me in the factory. I've worked here for 38 years. I smiled. I know. He wiped his eyes. Thank you for not letting this place die. I shook his hand. I didn't save it. You did. Every person who stayed and kept believing saved it. On my final day as advisor, the entire factory gathered in the warehouse. More than 400 employees stood together. My father slowly walked onto the stage. He looked healthier than he had 6 months earlier. He took the microphone. For most of my life, I believed success came from protecting wealth. He looked at me. My daughter taught me that success comes from protecting people. The room erupted in applause. He turned toward the employees. I almost lost this company because I judged people by status instead of character. I will never make that mistake again. That evening, Noah and I drove home. Our daughter Lily, now 12 years old, was waiting on the porch. She ran into our arms. Did Grandpa's company survive? I smiled. It did. She looked up at me. Are we rich now? Noah laughed. We were rich long before today. She frowned. We were? He nodded. We have each other. She smiled. I like that kind of rich. A week later, my father visited our home for the first time. Not the mansion. Our home. He looked around at the family photos covering the walls. Pictures of birthdays, camping trips, Christmas mornings, simple moments. He stopped in front of one photograph. It was taken 12 years earlier. Noah and I were standing outside our tiny apartment on our wedding day. We were smiling even though we had almost nothing. My father stared at the picture for a long time. Finally, he whispered, "I spent years thinking you had thrown your life away." He looked at Noah. "The truth is, you were building the kind of family money could never buy." Noah smiled. "We just built it one day at a time." People often ask me if I regret losing my inheritance. I always smile, because the truth is, I never lost it. I simply traded one inheritance for another. I lost a fortune, but I gained a husband who stood beside me when I had nothing. A daughter who taught me what truly matters. Friends who became family. A business we built with honesty instead of pride. And a second chance with the father who finally understood that love should never come with conditions. Sometimes people think the greatest revenge is watching those who hurt you lose everything. They're wrong. The greatest victory is building a life so full of love, purpose, and peace that you no longer need revenge at all. Because in the end, the family that chose me became far more valuable than the family that once turned me away.